Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming this evening. I'd like to talk about the civil case number 59 of 2018, which is, of course, the case between the Honourable Prime Minister and myself as the first and second applicants, and Aman Ravindra Singh as the respondent. This matter started when we filed a writ of action against Aman Ravindra Singh in 2018. The action dealt with the Facebook post appearing on Singh's Facebook page titled Regime Daily Politics. The post alleged that the applicants, which was the Honourable Prime Minister and myself, were involved in desecration of temples around Fiji. There's a number of the parts of the post read that we've got some plan to desecrate temples, create a climate of fear with the community, and then show up and promise security, and in which he used defamatory language, which I do not intend to repeat. Aman was duly served with a writ, but in fact he did not contest the proceedings. We then, as applicants, we obtained an interlocutory judgment. Some 2 years later, after the writ was filed, on 24th July, the High Court delivered its judgment on assessment of damages. And I quote, the court stated, "These allegations are very serious in nature. One does not make allegations of this nature unless they are true and have very strong grounds to justify them. The first plaintiff is the Prime Minister of Fiji, who was elected to that post by the people of Fiji. The people would have not voted for him if they did not have confidence and trust in him that he would discharge his duties honestly and efficiently. The people who read the above article would certainly have lost faith in the first plaintiff because he is referred to in the said article as violent Vorenge. The second plaintiff, who is the Minister of Economy and the Attorney General, was also elected by the people of Fiji to be a member of Parliament. Without any reasonable grounds, he has been referred to as corrupt Khaiyum. People have various political affiliations, but one must not defame the character of another for his own political gain. This is what exactly has happened in this case. No court will have sympathy towards people who violate the rights of others in the guise of exercising their rights guaranteed by the Constitution." Unquote. As in any judgment on assessment of damages in a defamation proceedings, the judgment ordered Aman Ravindra Singh to publish apologies to the applicants on Facebook, local dailies, to pay compensation, interest and costs. There was a judgment. Aman did not do any of those. In fact, what he did do is continue to post defamatory material. A total of 31 further posts appeared on his Facebook page containing the same defamatory material that has been adjudicated upon by the court and has been deemed to be defamatory. When the court has deemed certain words to be defamatory, you do not have the license to continue to use them. You cannot say that you have the freedom of speech or expression and continue to flagrantly disregard the findings of a court and indeed orders of a judgment. This is precisely what Aman did. The applicants then, the Honourable Prime Minister and I, filed committal proceedings against Aman on 9 August in 2020. In accordance with the High Court rules, leave was granted to institute committal proceedings. Committal proceedings are, of course, for contempt matters. Why contempt? There are different kinds of contempt, but this particular contempt was for the fact that there is a judgment. And the judgment has said you need to do X, Y, Z. And he flagrantly disobeyed the judgment. Thus, contempt of court proceedings were filed. Hearing in respect of the committal was conducted on 13 June 2022, 2 years later. This is the timeline for what transpired between 9 August 2020 and 13 June 2022. And is captured in the court's decision in respect of the committal proceedings. And in the judgment, actually, it went on to say, the judge said, "In my judgment, the respondent's conduct is intentional and is a far cry from a piece of breathtaking insouciance, defiance. There is a deliberate failure to comply with the orders of the court. The evidence of the case demonstrated not only that he acted in wholesale disregard of his obligations under the orders of the court, his wholesale flagrant a repeated and persistent disregard of his obligations under the orders of the court, coupled with an awareness of the consequences, can properly be regarded as contumelious conduct. In other words, continuing contempt. I think he had at the least been reckless as to the consequences of his conduct, and on general principles that was enough to establish that his disregard of his obligations under the orders of the court had been intentional and contumelious. Therefore, the consequences of contumely should follow. Now, I can read to you numerous parts of the judgment itself, and I think what is actually quite telling also. When he was found guilty of contempt, then there was submissions to be made on the sentencing. He, of course, was sentenced on 16th August 2022. If you read paragraph 53 of the actual sentencing judgment, the judge says, "This court is entitled to conclude that the respondent's sarcastic statement overrides the court's ratio and finding in the judgment. He not only persisted, but escalated the conduct. The respondent's conduct should be characterized as attempting to find a weakness or loophole in the judgment orders and seeking to exploit that. A conspicuous aspect of the respondent's conduct is that it was carefully planned. In the circumstances of this case, deterrence looms large in relation to both the aspect dealing with contumacious disobedience to the judgment orders and in relation to what might be conveniently described as defiance of the court's authority. The rule of law requires that those whose rights are infringed should seek the aid of the court, and respect for the legal process can suffer if those who need protection fail to get it. The respondent's statement is a clear and present danger to judicial administration, and if permitted, could shake the confidence of the litigants and the public in the decisions of the court and weaken the spirit of obedience to the law. His vigilante sentiment cannot be tolerated if the rule of law and the role of the courts is to have a meaningful part to play in maintaining civil society." What it simply means also is that tomorrow you have an order from the court. You are expected to follow that order. Everybody's supposed to follow the order of the court. It does not mean because you are somebody else, or because you are somebody famous, or because you think you are famous, or because you think you are different, you should not follow the orders of the court. Because if people choose and select as to when they should follow court orders or who should follow court orders, you don't have civil society. You cannot maintain the rule of law. In other words, the law is only there for some and not all. And this is precisely the reason why orders of the court need to be followed. And this is precisely the reason why the Attorney General must at all times ensure that the courts, for example, are in no way scandalized. This is why we should ensure that if you receive a subpoena to go to court, you go to court. This is why you must ensure that when you go to court and you're sitting in court, you do not misbehave. You do not become belligerent. If the court asks you to do something, you have to do so. And if you don't do so, you can be held in contempt. That's how the system works, because it needs to work that way. That's how you protect the system, and that's how you maintain confidence in the law, in the judicial system. So, after he was sentenced, now skip all the parts of the court rulings. I've read, I think, enough of that. The court sentenced Aman to a term of 10 months immediate imprisonment for contempt of court. He, of course, we understand, was not present in court and may have left the country, as we subsequently are hearing now. This in itself shows, at best, at best, irresponsible behavior by an officer of the court, because all lawyers are admitted to the High Court of Fiji. You swear an oath. You're considered what you call an officer of the court. And of course, he did not have the courage to front up and take accountability for his actions. At worst, the absconding demonstrates a complete lack of disrespect for the rule of law. We've recently had some high-profile, well-known public people, personalities, who were convicted by a court of law, who were then asked to make submissions on sentencing, who were then fronted to the court. They appeared in court. They were sentenced. They came to court. They were, from one perspective, ordinary citizens, well-known citizens. And here we have, on the other hand, an officer of the court flagrantly, not physically only absconding, but absconding from his own responsibilities, abdicating his responsibilities as an officer of the court. There have been some questions, of course, bandied around by various media organizations and sent to us and to our lawyers as to why a departure prohibition order was not entered against Aman and why he had not surrendered his passport in court. As stated earlier on, in all of you media organizations, you have lawyers. If you had good lawyers, they would tell you to not ask those questions, because they would also tell you that committal proceedings are quasi-criminal proceedings. This means you do not go through the formalities associated with ordinary criminal charge, where you appear in court. You make bail, your conditions are attached to your bail. It may include the prosecution requiring you to surrender your passport or departure prohibition order being entered against you. This is not a normal criminal proceedings. An application of a departure prohibition order can be made, but you need to establish whether this individual is a flight risk or not. You know, people dealing drugs, international drugs, etc. say, oh, they might take off with the country, out of the country. You sometimes people have, for example, when there's custodial battles between parents. Some may have residency in other countries. You may get a DPO, or there's a maintenance payment, and the father may live overseas, so you have a DPO for him to pay the maintenance before they leave. Here we have a situation where it's not a criminal matter, quasi-criminal matter, and on top of that you have a lawyer involved. Of course, you do not know what the contempt ruling may be, what the ruling of the court may be. By you, in a quasi-criminal matter, asking for a DPO, you're trying to preempt what the court will do. You're trying to preempt to say, oh, he will be sent to prison. We don't know that. As we've seen in contempt proceedings throughout the world, in the common law jurisdictions, sometimes the judge gives a slap and saying, don't do it again. Sometimes they may impose a fine. Some people have been sent to prison. So it varies. So that's why DPOs aren't requested. Our lawyers, of course, made their submissions regarding sentencing, and they leave it to the court. As I said, he's not any ordinary litigant. He's worked as a prosecutor. He's a practicing in private practice. Officer of the court, expected to appear in court. Whether it is to represent a client or represent himself in a case, he's a party to. He, of course, we would say, has shown deliberate malice, disrespect, and some may even say cowardly behavior. We've also been asked as to whether we'll do some form of extradition. There are options that can be explored in terms of requiring someone who's convicted and sentenced to return to Fiji and serve his or her prison sentence in Fiji. We can look at these. We have not made a decision. We have to, of course, look at various other factors, including on what basis is left Fiji, on what basis is entered. We understand last country is Australia. We were told today is going to New Zealand. We don't know about that. So, we cannot make a decision as such on that. But we wanted to have this press or media conference to clear the air, Because even till today, we're getting some media organizations saying, oh, why wasn't a DPO? Somebody sent me some Facebook post of somebody saying, oh, it's a slap on the government's face. I mean, how completely obtuse is that to say it's a slap on government's face? The applicants were two individuals, Josiah Varangi Beni Marama and Aiyaz Sayed-Khaiyum. The person who wrote that obviously does not know anything about the law. And DPO is not required for committal proceedings. And this is why we wanted to have this press conference, so we can clear up the air with you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I would also urge you, as media organizations, to please read the judgments. They're very good judgments, in particular the one on the contempt proceedings and the contempt outcome, and also the sentencing in itself. Because it does give you a good sense of what the law is, and indeed it would stop a lot of people asking rather frivolous questions. Quite happy to take any questions on this first, and I understand that some people want to ask questions on other matters. Quite happy to take those questions once we've dealt with this particular matter. Thank you.
So just quite quickly, with the information that the government is receiving, your office is receiving about his movement, would you be able to confirm with us whether those information is reliable?
Well, look, we only know what people are saying. We have not made any, deliberate attempt at this point in time to know exactly where he is, whether he's gone to, Singapore or New Zealand or Timbuktu. We don't know. But obviously we need to look at the various options. I mean, he may go to countries where we may not necessarily have those kind of, relationships in terms of extradition, etc. But we'll find out. Just early days. Just found out, yesterday, a day or two ago, that he's not in the country. So it's rather sad, actually, what has happened. Really. And, it is really quite hypocritical for those people like him and others, who, at the risk, want to talk about the rule of law, talk about, stability, etc. And these are the very people who are actually undermining it, not seeing the hypocrisy in it.
Among others, being a lawyer, we, as the public, as well as the media, expect him to know more about the law. And his action now, what sort of impact does it have against our judicial system, the ruling that has been made?
Well, the ruling basically held him in contempt of court, of course, for which he was sentenced to prison for 10 months. So, you cannot get any more clearer than that. The court has given an order, you're supposed to follow that order. Whether it's for you to publish an apology, whether to pay a particular, damages or fine, or whether court tells you to come to court, whatever the case may be, there are court orders that need to be followed. And here is an officer of the court who flagrantly did not follow the orders of the court. It's as simple as that.
So, just a clarification confirmation, the government just notes that he has left the country, but his last whereabouts were Australia. Anything after that is unnoticed?
Yeah, look, we don't spend our resources trying to track this guy down. We're hearing stuff from people doing all sorts of posts, but in time to come, obviously, we need to ensure that we'll do whatever is necessary to do. We don't want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to get this person who's got no respect for the law. We obviously have to see what are the options available.
Based on our extradition agreements with Australia and New Zealand, and I believe this is one of the questions I sent to you, is there a possibility of having him extradited?
We don't want to preempt those things. They're obviously the legal matters we need to go through, and as I said, we're going through a particular process. Once we've achieved a pathway, then we can make those announcements. It's not prudent to preempt those things.